The opinions on the OP14 Mihawk can be very divided.
Mihawk is a fraud. It became abundantly clear that this man might just not be the world's greatest swordsman. Like, it is so sad. Like, it is actually is so sad. He just gets by on aura and aura alone.
To some, not only is he the greatest swordsman, but he's also the greatest deck in OP14. To others, he's a simple fraud undeserving of the spot that he has in this meta. In the most recent Japanese Championship, the Season 2 finals filled with only the best players in Japan, Mihawk was actually the most represented deck, and not by a small margin. 34.2% of the entire tournament was Mihawk, and not only this, but 16 out of 32 people in Top Cut. 50% of all of Top Cut was Mihawk. However, is Mihawk actually the best deck in the game? Well, reading the title and thumbnail, I already think that you know how I feel about this. So let me explain to you why I think that Mihawk is not actually as good as potentially you may be led to think based on some of these stats. Now, to clarify, I'm not saying that Mihawk is bad. I think that he is in the top 4 decks in Ime, Ace, Mihawk, and Boa. But I think these decks are really close in power, unlike what you may be led to believe based on the Season 2 finals results. And so first I want to talk about exactly what makes Mihawk good, and to then follow that up why I don't think that he necessarily is the best deck in OP14 while still being competitively very viable. Firstly, if you only look at these top 4 decks in Boa, Ime, Ace, and Mihawk, Mihawk is probably the only leader within the entire game that can go toe-to-toe with all of these leader. Of course, it's 50-50 in the mirror. Hancock, Ace, and Ime, you can all win if you can manage to draw your cards, but this is the key thing for me, is that you won't always draw your cards. So therefore, none of Mihawk's matchups feel extremely winning, 70-30 to 80-20 range. They all feel ever so slightly favored for Mihawk, potentially a 55-45 or a 60-40. And this is really, really good, being able to go toe-to-toe with all of the top decks. But the actual issue that I have with Mihawk is not its ability to fight with the top decks. No one's going to argue that it doesn't do well into some of these decks, particularly Ime. If you just have enough time, you will inevitably win over him. And basically every other deck in the game, if you give Ime time, he ends up winning. But what really makes Mihawk difficult to place within the meta is not these top matchups, but all of the other ones. You see, basically every Tier 2 or lower matchup that Mihawk has is a little bit tricky to deal with. Blue-purple Luffy, yellow Luffy, green Bonnie, purple Doflamingo, blue Jinbe. There are a lot of decks that beat Mihawk, and not just slightly beat him like the way that Mihawk slightly beats a lot of these top tier decks, can completely devastate him in the case of some of these decks. So essentially what I want to say in regard to green Mihawk is that he's a very good leader into the top leaders, but he's not very good into things that aren't the top meta decks. Therefore, if the meta changes, he can very quickly and very easily fall out of the top, because he's only good because he specifically counters the things that are at the top. And it's exactly this reason why he did so well in the Japan finals. Japan finals, everyone's bringing their A game. Everyone's bringing strong decks because everyone used strong decks to qualify. It's a filtered tournament filled with 240 of only the best players in Japan that have already qualified through one championship. This means that you have a much lower chance of hitting some random low tier decks, making Mihawk objectively one of the best decks to bring to this type of tournament. However, in longer formats where there's 9 to 10 rounds of Swiss into Top Cut, there's a lot of variance and variables that can end up happening, making it very difficult to actually fully win out games when there are so many bad matchups, and even your winning matchups aren't exactly confidently winning. If we take a look at the play rate of all of the decks in the first Japanese championship, we can see that Mihawk was actually the most played deck in this championship as well. However, if you look at the top cut, Mihawk is only 2 out of the top 16 decks, and while this still is about 12% of top cut if you turn it into a percentage, given the amount of people who were playing this deck, not very many were able to convert into top cut. Compare this to a deck like Boa that can be very oppressive just towards a lot of leaders in general and catch people off guard just by people not really knowing how to play against it. Boa's consistently converted very well into Top Cut. In essence, what I want to say in this short video is that yes, Mihawk is good. Much better than I gave him credit for, because towards the beginning of the format, when things were very volatile, I thought that he was a deck that was basically just trying to target a few decks. And while he has remained that way, as the meta has settled in Japan, he has gotten a lot better. But really, the reason why he shined so much in the Season 2 finals was because it was just that. It is the culmination of the best players in Japan, meaning that there is much less variance in the decks that you can play against, and that's why he was so prevalent and ended up winning on the day. Especially at the beginning of a meta, I don't think I can recommend Mihawk wholeheartedly because there's so many things, so many people trying new decks, excited for the new set. And as people are excited to try new things like Purple Doflamingo, Blue Jinbe, and whatnot, it just makes it a lot more difficult to justify bringing Mihawk when you have a lot more consistent and more powerful options. But yeah, if you weren't really sure what to bring to your regionals, or you weren't really finding the success that you were looking for with Mihawk on the sim, for example, maybe I could give a little bit of context as to why it did so well in the most recent Japanese tournament. Unfortunately, the reality is that Japan doesn't have that many championship level events, so we only had 4 tournaments in OP14. We had 2 Tokyo championships, 1 Osaka championship, and the finals, and there was a sizable gap between the championships and the finals. So we only saw the very early meta and the culmination of just the best players, and we never really saw the meta develop in Japan. It's for this reason that in the first couple of tournaments we saw Purple Doflamingo be very good because he's another deck that's very good when the opponent doesn't exactly know how to play against it, and in the Japan finals we didn't see that many Doflamingo. Still, thanks to this time skip, we can see how things have changed in Japan and the perception of these decks, and use it as guidance but not the absolute law for what you should be playing in the West. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, all that stuff. Really helps me out. I'm trying to get to 30,000. I don't know what I'll do at 30,000, but I'll do something. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.